Kevin Garnett was never just a player on the court. He was a force of nature, known for his unmatched intensity. He would bang his head against the stanchion before every game, psyching himself up like no one else. Fans called him the Big Ticket because they knew the Timberwolves weren't the same without him. But as fierce as he was, Garnett didn't like everyone. Some players pushed his buttons and his rivalries became legendary. Today we're counting down the top 6 basketball players Kevin Garnett hated the most. And trust me, when we get to number 1, you'll see a rivalry so intense it makes you wonder, can basketball really get this personal? Number 1, Ray Allen. Kevin Garnett never hid how he felt about certain players, and if you ever bring up Ray Allen around him, the air in the room changes fast. Their whole story feels like watching 2 strong personalities trying to fit into one space that was never big enough for both of them. They knew each other long before Boston, going back to AAU days, but once they became stars in the league, their worlds moved in different directions, and by the time they reunited in Green, something between them had already shifted. Ray even said he felt it on the very first game as Celtics teammates, when Garnett snapped at him for doing his usual calm dribbling routine in the locker room. That tiny thing blew up because both of them walked in thinking they were the main voice of every room they entered, and Ray described it perfectly, 2 alpha dogs trying to figure out who actually controlled the temperature around them. When they formed the Celtics' Big Three with Paul Pierce, the team chemistry looked smooth on the court, and fans had no idea how tense things felt behind the scenes. Ray said he respected Garnett's intensity, because there was never a moment when KG slowed down or treated a possession like a throwaway. But respect didn't stop the friction. Garnett played with a fire that made teammates feel protected, but it also made them feel the pressure of matching his energy every single minute. Ray had a different style, more quiet focus, and trying to merge those 2 approaches often created sparks that never fully cooled down. Everything exploded in 2012 when Ray decided to leave Boston and sign with the Miami Heat. To him, it was a professional move. He had already adapted his whole game for Boston, learned how to play off screens differently, changed his mentality to fit a roster built around Garnett's voice, and he felt he had earned the right to choose what came next. He said he never understood why he needed to apologize for doing something every player is told to do from the moment they enter the league: chase a championship. But Garnett didn't hear any of that. All he saw was a teammate walking straight into the locker room of the team that had just crushed their playoff dreams, and for him, that felt like betrayal on a level that went beyond basketball strategy. Garnett cut off all communication with Ray, and it stayed that way for years. Pierce was disappointed too, but KG kept the wall higher than anyone. He once said that if people truly wanted to fix things, it would have happened already. And that line told you exactly how deep the crack went. The old Celtics core aged, scattered across the league, and even then the silence between Garnett and Allen stayed heavy. What finally forced KG to rethink everything was Kobe Bryant's death. Garnett said that losing someone like Kobe made him realize how short life actually is.
The passing of Kobe and all of us getting older helped me understand that life is not given to none of us.
Absolutely.
It would have with me if something would have happened to Ray and I didn't get a chance to amend this.
And it bothered him to imagine something happening to Ray before they had a chance to clear the air. When Ray showed up at KG's jersey retirement in Boston, people were shocked to see them share a moment that looked almost peaceful, considering everything that had happened. Ray talked later about how he had adjusted his whole approach in Boston just so their group could win the 2008 title. And he described how learning to play next to someone like Garnett forced him to change the rhythm of his personality. He said playing with KG meant stepping into a room where intensity lived in every corner, and you had to meet it without letting your own game disappear. He never tried to match Garnett's fire with the same noise, but he learned how to keep his head steady inside it, and that balance was the only reason they worked on the floor, even when they were barely speaking off it. Number 2, Carmelo Anthony. When people talk about players Kevin Garnett truly could not stand being around, Carmelo Anthony always comes up. because their rivalry never felt like simple trash talk or just two stars trying to get under each other's skin. It carried a different kind of charge. The type that makes the entire arena tighten when they stand next to each other. And the story behind it starts way before that famous 2013 night when everything exploded in front of the cameras. Melo had always been pretty calm on the court, not the type who chased confrontations. But whenever he faced Garnett, something inside him tightened because KG talked in a way that sounded less like basketball and more like someone trying to get inside your ribs. They had played many games against each other before that season, and both had plenty of pride stacked on their shoulders. So, by the time that Knicks-Celtics matchup rolled around, the pressure between them had been simmering for years. People remember the rumor about the Honey Nut Cheerios comment because it spread like wildfire, but Melo later explained that what Garnett said that night was not that line at all. In his own words, KG told him something so wild that he did not even want to repeat it on his podcast. And that was the moment he felt KG had crossed a line that players usually respect without needing to spell it out. It rattled him so much that when the fourth quarter ended, he didn't care about ice baths or stretching or cool-down routines. He went straight to the tunnel with Iman Shumpert and Baron Davis behind him, telling them he needed a conversation, not a fight, just a face-to-face moment where he could ask Garnett why he said whatever he said. They waited close to half an hour because KG always took his time after games. And when Garnett finally walked out with security around him, Melo stepped forward, and KG just stared like he couldn't believe Melo wanted to handle something that serious over a basketball game. Years later, Garnett told GQ that he never mentioned Melo's family, never mentioned Lala, and never said anything about Honey Nut Cheerios. He even joked that he preferred Frosted Flakes, trying to shut down the rumor once and for all. And Lala herself wrote in her book that the whole cereal line was a lie that somehow grew into a headline. But both of them admitted that something was said that hit Melo deep enough to make him chase a private talk. And the strange part is that the two never actually addressed it directly, not even when they ended up on the same all-star team. Melo said he wanted to sit down with him that weekend, maybe clear the air before it dragged on any longer. But the moment never came, and the tension stayed lodged between them for years. What made everything even more interesting was that Garnett later opened up about another rivalry, the one he had with Dwight Howard. And he admitted that during one Rockets-Nets game, he got so heated he tried to go after Dwight, even after leaving the court. That confession made people realize just how intense he became when emotions ran too high. And it made Melo's story feel even more believable because you could picture KG stepping into a zone where nothing exists except whatever he wants to prove in that moment. Dwight eventually reached out to talk, which surprised KG so much that he said it brought him down for whatever emotional cliff he had climbed. Melo never got that moment with him, even though he's now inviting him to come on his podcast and talk it out like grown men who finally got tired of letting silence sit between them. Number 3. Joakim Noah. The rivalry between Kevin Garnett and Joakim Noah didn't grow slowly or build over time. It sparked the very first moment Noah tried speaking to him as a rookie, and from that day forward it carried a charge that followed them through every game they ever played against each other. Noah entered the league with posters of Garnett on his childhood bedroom wall, wearing his jersey and copying his energy during his own early practices, believing that one day he would finally meet the player he had admired for years. When that moment arrived during a blowout loss in his rookie season, he approached Garnett quietly during a break, hoping to share a quick, respectful comment about how much he looked up to him. But the reaction he got hit him so hard that it ended every warm idea he had carried about that childhood hero. Instead of even acknowledging the respect, Garnett snapped at him with a sharp line asking who he thought he was talking to. And Noah said he instantly froze because he realized he had made a mistake trying to talk like a fan in the middle of a game. The moment he backed away to avoid escalating anything, Garnett raised his voice even more, which Noah took as a sign that KG thought he was soft, and that single interaction flipped something inside him with a speed he never expected. He went from being a young big man excited to meet his idol to someone who felt completely embarrassed, and the anger he swallowed that night turned into fuel that shaped every season that followed. From then on, Noah made a promise to himself that no one would ever disrespect him like that again. And every matchup against Garnett became personal. The Bulls and the Celtics had several heated playoff battles, and Noah attacked those moments with a level of fire that seemed directly connected to that embarrassing rookie memory. He said many times that Garnett was the player he thought about all summer while training, pushing himself through drills and sprints because he could not forget how he felt that night. Every rebound, every defensive rotation, every yell after a tough play seemed wrapped in the history of that moment when he tried to compliment the wrong person at the wrong time. Different interviews showed how deeply that experience dug into him. On Out the Mud, he said he learned a lesson that shaped his whole career, explaining that once he understood there was no love in battle, he treated every matchup with complete seriousness. He said the shock of Garnett's response forced him to grow up faster than he expected, and he carried that edge into every game, especially the ones where Garnett was standing on the other side of the floor. On Pardon My Take, he repeated the story, saying he regretted speaking as soon as the words left his mouth. And once Garnett barked back at him, everything about how he viewed competition changed forever. What made the entire story even more unexpected was the moment many years later when both men sat down together after retirement. On KG's show, they finally talked through the rivalry, and Garnett told him he never knew Noah had been a fan, and admitted he had been trying to destroy his will during those battles. He apologized for killing that light, and Noah accepted it with a calmness that showed how much time had passed, with both men now looking back on a rivalry built from one sharp moment that never left either of them. And just as the conversation settled into something almost calm, it simply stopped. Number 4. Udonis Haslem. The battle between Kevin Garnett and Udonis Haslem came in hot from day one, because every time Miami and Boston faced each other, the energy changed. Haslem wasn't the type to look for trouble, but he also wasn't the type to let someone run their mouth at his teammates without answering for it. And Garnett, as everyone in the league knew, talked more than anyone. The problem for UD was that KG never said a single word to him directly. Instead, he went after the guys around him, and that pushed Haslem to a place where the Heat-Celtics rivalry felt personal every night. Haslem said it himself on the Stephen A. Smith Show. He explained that he comes from a world where your mouth has consequences, and the way Garnett talked crossed lines, he didn't let anyone cross. He even joked that if those moments had happened at the park, he would have had to pop the trunk, because that was how serious the disrespect felt to him. And even though the Heat beat the Celtics in 4 out of 6 postseason matchups during his career, he still carries that sting. The beef didn't end when the games ended either. Years later, when someone asked Haslem about KG entering the Hall of Fame, he didn't hesitate to take another shot. The question called Garnett one of the toughest guys in the class. And Haslem pushed back immediately. He said 2 of the players going in were truly tough, and one just talked too much. He didn't hide who he meant. He made it clear that talking never impressed him, and that Garnett's noise didn't match the picture others painted. Even when Garnett and Paul Pierce commented on the Heat's championship window a while back, Haslem responded with the same edge. He reminded everyone that Miami was the team that ended Boston's run, and that those years created a level of bad blood that didn't fade. On his podcast with Dwayne Wade, he even admitted there are still a couple of names he wouldn't want to bump into, because there wouldn't be any almost fighting anymore. KG was one of them. The memories were still sharp, and so was the tension. Number 5. Kendrick Perkins. Perkins had been with the Celtics for 4 seasons before Garnett arrived in 2007, and from day one their personalities clashed hard. Perkins called Garnett the first guy to bust my ass when he joined the league, and it showed immediately their first meetings weren't friendly at all. On the court, KG was aggressive, relentless, and direct, and Perkins matched that energy with his own fire. according to Perkins during a game against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The two got so heated that they were damn near about to go to blows. Garnett talked big, and Perkins wasn't backing down. Their rivalry almost became physical right from the start. For the first 3 weeks after Garnett joined the Celtics, Perkins and Garnett barely spoke. Perkins admitted they didn't even look at each other much and only exchanged cold stares. Everything changed after the Celtics' first preseason game against the Toronto Raptors in Italy. Both players went all out, treating the game like a regular season match. Perkins scored 12 points with 3 rebounds, while Garnett recorded a double-double. That game showed Perkins how dedicated Garnett was, and Garnett saw Perkins' toughness. From that moment, Perkins realized, "This my dog." Their respect for each other grew after that, but it had to be earned, and it wasn't given easily. Before even becoming teammates, their rivalry had a history of fiery trash talk. Perkins remembered Garnett humiliating him in early matchups, calling him trash and nobody, and even performing the infamous taste test, swiping his finger across Perkins' jersey while shouting at him. It was a mix of psychological warfare and pure provocation. Garnett knew how to push buttons, and Perkins didn't shy away. That combination led to heated battles on the court and tense moments off it. Sometimes their clashes extended beyond games, spilling into practices and locker room interactions. Even after they learned to respect each other, their bond had strange emotional moments. Perkins shared with Christine Leahy how, when the news of his trade broke, he and Garnett locked themselves in a room and cried together. Despite their early clashes, the raw emotions they shared showed how their deep connection had become. Garnett pushed Perkins to his limits, and Perkins pushed back, but over time the rivalry turned into mentorship and friendship. Garnett later admitted he had watched Perkins closely, tested him, and even admired his determination. They went from almost fighting to having a bond stronger than most teammates ever develop. From cold stares and near fights to mutual respect and emotional moments, the Perkins-Garnett relationship is one of the most fascinating examples of tension turning into understanding in NBA history. Number 6. Tim Duncan. Kevin Garnett and Tim Duncan had one of the most intense rivalries in NBA history. From the moment Garnett entered the league, Duncan was one of a few players who could match his intensity and skill. Their first real clash came in 1999 when the Spurs faced the Timberwolves in the playoffs. Both were just 22 years old, already posting 20 and 10 averages, and both wanted to prove they were the best. Garnett was so hyped he could barely contain himself, and Duncan, usually calm and measured, admitted he tried too hard to outplay KG, sometimes forcing plays just to beat him. That series set the tone for the rivalry. It wasn't just about points or rebounds. Every game between them always felt like a war, as Duncan later described. Their clashes were physical and mental. Both players were ejected in a 2002 game, showing how high the tension could get. Garnett had a way of getting into Duncan's head, whispering trash talk, slapping him lightly and pushing buttons in subtle ways. Duncan, on the other hand, responded differently than anyone else. He wasn't loud or flashy, but his reactions were precise. Instead of fiery comebacks, Duncan would reply in short, understated phrases like, "Got you," "almost," or worst for Garnett, "nice try." KG said that lack of reaction frustrated him so much it got into his head, and eventually he stopped trying to bait Duncan. Despite their different personalities, their rivalry pushed both of them to new heights. Garnett was explosive, emotional, and loud. Duncan was stoic, calculated, and subtle. When they played, both brought out the best in each other. In the regular season and playoffs, they had countless memorable matchups. Garnett often dominated in scoring and rebounding early in Minnesota, but Duncan's Spurs always found a way to win the big games. Their records against each other were close, but Duncan had the edge in playoff series, showing how strategic and disciplined he was when it mattered most. Even years later, both acknowledged the rivalry shaped them. Duncan rarely spoke publicly about it, keeping the tension on the court, while Garnett thrived on challenging him. They left a lasting impression on teammates and fans alike, proving that rivalry doesn't have to be personal to be legendary. Every game between them carried an energy that few matchups in basketball history can rival, and their battles redefined how power forwards could compete. Which rivalry surprised you the most? Do you think there are other players who pushed KG's buttons just as much? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with your friends and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more crazy NBA stories just like this.